Morning, yay, and welcome to First Parish Brewster. We are a Unitarian, Universalist, welcoming congregation of people of diverse philosophies and beliefs, people of various cultures and races, sexual orientations, gender identities, abilities, and socioeconomic backgrounds. Whoever you are and wherever you are on your journey, may this be a place of rest and restoration on that path. For those of you who may be first-time visitors this morning, welcome. Welcome on this morning, which we make sacred by our presence together. A big welcome as well to people who are joining us on the virtual stream. We're glad you're here. I am Reverend Bran Lennox, the lead minister here at First Parish Brewster, and I go by gender-neutral pronouns like they and them. I'm honored to be welcoming you to the service with our worship associate, Lindsay Strauss, our music director, Kevin Bedanis, and our director of Lifespan Religious Education, Twinks Hastings, in the rainbow mask. Our services are recorded and available with transcribed subtitles on our YouTube channel midweek. We do ask that all over the age of 4 mask while in our buildings. Out of sensitivity for continued COVID-19 exposure risks for those most at risk among us, we are continuing to mask regardless of any changes in policy observed by other local organizations. By masking, we demonstrate care for each other's health and well-being, and we uphold the 1st, 2nd, 5th, and 7th principles of Unitarian Universalism. We welcome the noises, movements, and mirth that little ones bring in our services. Please take this moment, however, to check that your cell phone is on silent. We ask that all wear their name tags or fill out the sticker name tags in the hallway to my left in an effort to be more welcoming. Now is the time for community news announcements, and we have a statement from our UU the Vote team. Oh, we should mic you. Here, I'll bring it to you.
Hi, everybody. I'm speaking on behalf of Tavia Ossola and Catherine Farnham, who are the co-chair this year of UU the Vote. UU the Vote is a campaign sponsored by the UUA in the United States. We have completed phase 1 of UU Vote effort in 2022 by mailing 550 postcards to Texas prior to a March 1st primary there. The purpose is to encourage voters to register and vote in states where voter suppression laws exist. We need your help. Some of you have offered to write postcards. If you have not signed up to do this, please do so. You can find information on our website. Also, UU the Vote thankfully appreciates any donations of cash or stamps. This is obviously an expensive undertaking, and so you could write a check made out to FPB with UU the Vote in the memo line if you would like to support this effort and help make this go forward. So thank you very much. We're going to keep doing this right up to November. So,
Thank you for that update, Susan and Tavia in absentia. All right, more community news announcements. Please join the Board of Trustees and the Finance Committee right here after the service today for our mid-year presentation on the state of the church and our financial review. Twinks Hastings and I will be holding the Restorative Spiritual Practices Workshop online version on Zoom this Monday, the 21st, from 7 to 8 p.m. Please join us for an hour of creative centering practices. To find the registration link and receive updates, please see this week's Angle newsletter. Today at 2 p.m., we are hosting a lunch for Chuck Medansky's new book of poetry, Some Days the Spoons Talk Back. This event is free and open to the public, and profits from the book sales will benefit the work of First Parish. Next Sunday, Worship Associate Pat Stover and I will be kicking off our annual stewardship campaign with a service celebrating all the things that give this community its life. All are welcome next Sunday at 10 a.m. Welcome once again to Art Service today. It is so good to be together.
This morning we will explore what it means to be a community in covenant, what we have promised to each other as members of First Parish Brewster, and how entering into our covenant can make our lives better together. The first place I looked naturally in preparing for my call to worship this morning was the covenant itself, which in the space of 189 words and 5 short paragraphs sets forth the principles which should guide, and I believe almost always do, guide the way we act toward each other as members of this blessed community. Or as our longtime former minister, the Reverend Jim Robinson, used to say, to speak the truth with love. In calling on us to live in community in a way which reflects our UU values, what struck me about our covenant, particularly our promise to listen carefully to decisions made by our leadership and expect our leaders to honor the voices of those who disagree, how it stands in such stark contrast to the larger world in which we live, one in which all too often the decisions of political leaders, or as we have seen in the COVID-19 pandemic, even the recommendations of public health officials charged with responsibility to protect the public's health, the common weal as it's sometimes called, are seen as infringing on individual freedom, and the viewpoints of those who disagree, far from being honored, are dismissed out of hand. Interestingly, one place outside of First Parish where I do continue to experience the respectful exchange of views so sorely lacking in today's hyper-partisan political environment is in the courtroom. That in arguing for or against our clients' respective positions, attorneys in the Commonwealth, and it may be unique to this Commonwealth, still cling to the vestiges of a largely bygone era by addressing each other as brother or sister. It suggests, at least in one small corner of the world in which I live, that all is not completely lost when it comes to treating each other with respect and civility. Although clearly the gender binary reflected in our use of brother and sister requires updating to include non-binary people, not well described by those terms. So as we light our chalice this morning, and we light a special chalice symbolizing our love and remembrance of Penelope Ann Clay, let us remember not just to say we abide by our covenant, but to live it out in practice. To be guided by the words of today's closing hymn, to pledge ourselves anew to that high cause of greater understanding of who we are and what in us is true, and to be one in living for each other, to show to all a new community.
Good morning. I invite you to rise in body and or spirit as we sing our opening hymn. It is 1018 in the Teal hymnal, and it is Come and Go With Me. And as I have often stated, the core choir of any church is its congregation. And so I have one advice as your choral director. If you can hear the person next to you singing, you're not singing loud enough. Come and go with me to that land. Come and go with me to that land. Come and go with me to that land where I'm bound. Come and go with me to that land. Come and go with me to that land. Come and to that land where I'm bound. There'll be freedom in that land. There'll be freedom. Come on, land. There'll be freedom in that land. There'll be freedom in that land where I'm bound, where I'm bound. There'll be freedom in that land. There'll be freedom in that land. There'll be freedom in that land where I'm bound. There'll be justice. There'll be justice in that land. There'll be justice in that land. There'll be justice in that land where I'm bound. There'll be justice in that land. There'll be justice in that land. There'll be justice in that land where I'm bound. Where they'll be singing. They'll be, come on, in that land. They'll be singing in that. Oh, 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 oh. Where I'm bound, oh, where I'm bound. They'll be singing in that land. They'll be singing in that land. They'll be singing in that land where I'm bound. Amen. Please be seated.
All right. I'm awake now. So, on this February vacation, so we just have a couple of our friends here today, and you're welcome to come join us, but we're going to need everybody, no matter what your age, to listen to our story today. Willie, you can come down or you can stay, whatever you want to do. Perfect. So, oh, thank you. Yes, perfect. Reverend, you want to play a game with me?
Of course I want to play a game. What game do you want to play?
I don't know.
What if we played lava?
Yes, I love lava.
Okay, so the blue carpet is ocean, and that's not lava, but this wood is going to be lava. And you can stand on a chair, and that's not lava, but the blue chairs with arms, those are dragon chairs, and they are not safe.
What? No way. The whole carpet can't be the ocean. That's no fun. And can the blue chairs be dinosaurs? Because dragons give me nightmares.
But if the chairs aren't dragons, then there's no fire to make the lava.
Good point.
Okay, I don't want you to be scared, so what if we turn the chairs into flaming chalices instead, and we keep the carpet as ocean, but there's piranhas in there? What about that?
Nearly. How about the left side is piranhas, and the right side is alligators?
Okay, deal.
And like that, a covenant was born. There are lots of different ways to play games, right? And if you don't want to play all by yourself, then everybody has to agree on what rules to play with while you're playing. Maybe you can keep all of your rules, or maybe you can change them. Some way, somehow, after discussing and changing and arguing and compromising, everybody agrees on what rules should be. Maybe you don't like another kid's rules all that much, and maybe someone doesn't like your rules all that much, but you both agree to them anyway, because you've got some rules you like, and the other person has some rules that they like, and then finally, everyone can promise to each other to follow the rules with no cheating, and we can play the game. And when we agree to follow the rules we make together, we are covenanting with each other. A covenant is a promise to each other, about what we are going to do and how we're going to do it. We need a covenant to have fun playing a game. Where else have you heard of covenants? This is really for anyone. Anyone heard of covenants other than on the playground? Because I know you're all on the playground making covenants. In school, at First Parish Brewster. In a meeting. Marriage.
I heard Congress.
Congress. Indiana Jones, CYM, that's a good one. There's a lot of covenants there. In your neighborhood, yeah. So there's so many places that we have covenants, even if we don't put that name around it. They can be made by people in families, by students, by teachers. They're made in many religions and different faiths. And our Unitarian Universalist Society religion has a covenant, and many groups in First Parish have their own covenants together, and First Parish as a whole has a covenant.
So our congregation's covenant, and this is important to listen to carefully, is we respect the wisdom of all in a friendly and loving manner. Everyone deserves to be heard, including our kids. We approach one another as spiritual partners. Before speaking, we take a breath and we think, is it true? Is it kind? Will it help? We speak to each other directly and openly with empathy, compassion, and kindness. We use I statements and we respect healthy boundaries. We act in good faith according to our UU values. We listen carefully to the decisions made by leadership, and we expect our leaders to honor the voices of everyone who disagrees. When needed, we follow processes of reconciliation and resolution through right relations. We embrace questions, and we engage directly, listening deeply. When conflict appears, we see it as an opportunity for change and for growth. Understanding our differences, we allow for missteps, and we welcome feedback. We seek the goal of reconciliation, encouraging peer and social support when needed. We aspire to be our best selves. That means that we imagine and look forward to being our best selves. Whenever we need to, we have the capacity to gently remind and call each other back into our covenant, into the widening circle of our loving community. All right, and now we will sing you out.
Children, may you go now in peace. Children, may you go now in joy. Love surrounds you on your way.
And I invite you now into a spirit of meditation. Find a position with your body where you can be just a little bit more present than you were a minute ago. Perhaps you might want to change your posture. Find your feet grounded on the floor. Think about where your hands are right now. Perhaps they're palms up or palms down. Let your back be long. And let your breath carry deep through your mask, through your nose or mouth, through the throat and deep into the center of your body. And then let the wave of the breath wash and roll right back out. Deep from the center of your body, out through your throat, through the nose or the mouth, and into space. as that wave of breath continues to roll in and out, you might wish to close your eyes, or you might want to keep them open and simply soften your gaze. Let your line of sight fall a little below you. Breathe in once more, without judgment, without needing to change it. Simply notice and be aware. You might find yourself suddenly aware of some discomforts, physical, emotional, or both. Notice them. There's no need to change them. Let them be with you. Be just as ready to let them leave if they're ready to go. Become aware of a space in the center of your chest and use the power of your mind's imagination to place a little flame there, a spark. Center of your spiritual self that connects each of us to each other through the interdependent web. And allow the wave of your breath to brighten and strengthen that flame. And then as you continue to breathe, become aware of the flame in the person beside you. Use the power of your sense of imagination to see in your mind's eye a flame growing in each person around you, out and out and out, until you can see your connection via these flames to everyone in the room. Yourself and me, your neighbors. And now call into your mind's eye someone who's not here today who you love. Whether their life remains on this earth or has departed, picture their flame. Know that your connection to them is strong. And now you will need the centering of your breath once more as you imagine someone who you have a difficult time loving. Someone in your life who challenges you. And picture their flame too. And see that connection of light between yourself and them. As you continue to observe this interconnected web, take a quiet moment. And then begin to deepen your breath. You may wish to sigh, to release. Begin to wiggle your toes. Become aware of the four walls of this room and the seat below you and the ground beneath your feet. Let your eyes drift open if they were shut. And bring yourself back into the presence of this space. And with the awareness of this connection, sharp, let us be together, fully present in a moment of silence.
giving life the shape of justice. Roots all be close, wings set me free. Spirit of life, come to me, come to me.
Our first reading this morning, second try, is from Bell Hooks. I like living in small towns precisely because they are most often the places in our nation where basic principles underlying a love ethic exist and are the standards by which most people try to live their lives. In the small town where I live now, there is a spirit of neighborliness, of fellowship, care, and respect. These same values existed in the neighborhoods of the small town where I grew up. We protect and nurture our collective well-being. We strive to make our home place a positive environment for everyone. We all agree that integrity and care enhances all of our lives. We try to live by the principles of a love ethic. To live our lives based on the principles of a love ethic, showing care, respect, knowledge, integrity, and the will to cooperate, we have to be courageous. Learning how to face our fears is one way we embrace love. Our fear may not go away, but it will not stand in the way. Those of us have already chosen to embrace a love ethic, allowing it to govern and inform how we think and act, know that when we let our light shine, we draw to us and are drawn to other bearers of light. We are not alone.
Each week we have the practice of splitting our offertory plate. Half of what is collected goes to the work of First Parish, and the other half goes to a worthy organization nominated by someone in the congregation. Today, our split plate goes to Habitat for Humanity of Cape Cod. Habitat for Humanity has developed over 140 affordable homes on Cape Cod. Local families help build their own homes alongside volunteers and pay an affordable mortgage. With the support of Habitat and community contributors, Habitat homeowners achieve the strength, stability, and self-reliance they need to build a better life for themselves and their families. There are a couple of ways you can give today. You can text to give. The number is in your order of service. You can put a check or cash in the offertory basket as it comes around. Or for those streaming in, you can donate on our website. However you choose to give, your generosity is appreciated. The offering will now be gratefully received.
Even when
Our second reading this morning is from Kendall Gibbons. Our communities of memory and promise are founded upon covenants because we all need a defense against the impulse of immediate feelings that challenge our best intentions. It is necessary to be reminded from time to time of what you said you were going to do and what you really want, over and above the lure of momentary comfort. Covenant is our word for the solemn promise that counteract the randomness of a future in which anything and everything is possible by committing us in advance to certain relationships and values. We do this because what we build with intention and even with difficulty is more satisfying in the long run than the pleasures that we happen to encounter. We do it in time-consuming rituals, invoking powers that we scarcely know how to name, because we are seeking some way to give our lives the density and the dignity and depth that we suspect, with longing, might yet be possible.
Many of us are first drawn to Unitarian Universalism by the freedom it promises. If we've experienced more restrictive religious or cultural systems in the past, then it can feel like a revelation when we first discover that there is a community of faith which encourages us to be who we are, love who we love, and believe what we believe. Sometimes this freedom is the only thing that someone has heard about Unitarian Universalism, and it leads to a lack of clarity about what it is that brings us together. In fact, many lifelong UUs would be at a loss to explain our uniting theology. I certainly couldn't have described it well up until about a semester into my first year in seminary. So we may go many years without ever learning what it means to be a covenantal faith. Some people here may be learning this news for the first time today, and I want to celebrate with you if it's your first time exploring this beautiful part of our tradition. It turns out that a central part of being in covenant with each other is talking about what it means to be in covenant with each other. So we're off to a pretty good start. Despite the fears that discussions of commitment can strike into our hearts, I will bring this truth to light without softening the edges. Prepare yourself. By participating in a Unitarian Universalist congregation, we are all committing to be bound in covenant with one another. Before you start looking around for the emergency exits, though, please take a deep breath. Let's talk about this some more. Does it sound like a contradiction to be both a free faith and bound by covenant? It certainly might, until we consider the meaning of boundaries. I'm experiencing my physical boundaries right now. I believe it was best said by non-binary healer and community activist Prentice Hemphill. They say, boundaries are the distance at which I can love you and me simultaneously. Boundaries are the distance at which I can love you and me simultaneously. When we want to be in relationship with one another, and this includes the relationship of a community like this one, we must be mindful both of our own needs and those of the people around us. At too much distance, we fall apart. At too little distance, we lose the ability to know ourselves. Put plainly, an unboundaried relationship results in codependency. Just like in families, when a community has poor boundaries, we find the hallmarks of codependency cropping up everywhere. people-pleasing, difficulty expressing our needs, triangulation, passive aggression, and reactivity. In this territory, we need to restore ourselves by finding that distance at which we can love ourselves and each other simultaneously. So where does covenant come into all of this? It means that within our communities, when we are building our shared space together on the foundation of an affirming set of boundaries, whatever we create from here is born with the intention of loving ourselves and each other. In some religious traditions, we are called to covenant with God. Here, our universalist ancestors have taught us to find the spark of the divine in each other. Whatever God or gods we do or don't believe in, to covenant with the divine, we must find this promise first in each other. Here in this space, we make that connection through our commitments. This is a participatory faith. Although we have some broader agreements and principles as a denomination, shared covenants are between us in our smaller communities of real interdependence. They are not laws, rules, or dogmatic articles. They are connecting commitments authored by their own constituents, that's us, to address the needs of the community. A good covenant is specific enough to be meaningful, but general enough to account for the diverse and ever-changing nature of the humans who share it. When a covenant is broken, it should not be a weapon used to cast each other out in punishment. It's a guiding star which leads us back into relationship with one another. A good covenant is many things. It is loving, anchoring, solemn, and aspirational. In terms of loving, Bell Hooks has a lot to say about this in her book, All About Love. She talks about the indispensable nature of love in our efforts for justice. She criticizes the disaffected rejection of love as a core value in modern justice movements, questioning our ability to be guided in our efforts without keeping compassion, or as she calls it, the love ethic, central in our goals. I can relate to her sense that divine love and spiritual interconnection are powers of healing in lives so wounded by dysfunctional family dynamics and other societal traumas. Through love, our suffering does not disappear, but we do begin to find spaciousness and new growth where before there was only pain. Without some healing and growth, we are liable to repeat to others the same patterns which have wounded us. As a community committed to social justice, the love which fuels our covenant should be the same love that fuels our calls to action. We don't engage with covenant or with justice from a place of bitterness, vengefulness, or fear. Harder for some, we also must not engage from a place of self-sacrifice or martyrdom. We must learn and maintain the difference between being unselfish and being selfless. If we are to honor the divine in each other, we must also honor the divine in ourselves. A good covenant is reassuring. It gives us a sense of security. When people here in the USA enter into a marriage, they usually covenant with wedding vows. These vows used to mainly be predetermined by the couple's religion or culture, but it's become increasingly popular for the beloveds to write vows for themselves. Whatever words are used, the vows are a reassurance that when we say we will be married, we're committing to roughly the same idea of what that relationship means. A covenant is no different. It provides a sense of security. When questions arise about how best to be together, that we can first look to the agreement at the root of our connection. With all the uncertainty around us, it gives us something shared to hold on to. It makes our commitment less nebulous, more concrete. It describes the beginnings of how we want to treat each other and be treated. I know I feel safer with explicit boundaries like this, not just in the ways that they protect me in our interactions, but also in the ways that they give me a sense of how I can behave with you without causing harm to you. Avoiding being the source of harm is very important to me, and I find it actually terrifying to interact if I can't trust those around me to let me know what their needs are. I know that I can't assume someone's needs and sensitivities will be the same as mine. So even a few explicit boundaries can give me a clue as to what is expected, and it allows us to start building or rebuilding trust. A covenant gives me security that I don't need to walk on eggshells with you, because we will be accountable to each other in a meaningful way. Covenanting is solemn in that it should not be taken lightly. I certainly don't mean we need to stress or have fear about it, but the fact is that it only has the power that we give it. It's sort of a useless agreement if we covenant just to check a box and only revisit the terms when someone goofs up. We each have a responsibility to take this agreement seriously in order to make it a strong anchoring foundation for our togetherness. If we don't like the terms, we have a responsibility to communicate that to each other. It's up to each of us to make sure that the covenant is something that we can really agree to in good faith. We also have a solemn responsibility to be mindful in our community's democratic process. Not only does this mean staying informed of the goings-on, making our thoughts known, and voting regularly, it also means having self-awareness about our level of presence in that process. If you are someone who hasn't made your true feelings and opinions known here recently, maybe it's time to share. If you are someone who has made your feelings and opinions known pretty often, maybe it's time to check that everyone is having a fair chance to be honored. Move back a little. Our congregation's covenant has some great guidance on how to do both of those things with consideration and with care. When I say covenanting is aspirational, I mean that we're human beings, and therefore we are perfectly imperfect. None of us abide by our covenant 100% of the time, not even me, but we can all strive to do so. One of our solemn responsibilities is to avoid becoming complacent. We must remember that we have never arrived. We are always on the journey together, and there is always more learning and growing and healing to do. Our covenant is also aspirational in that it does its best to describe what our needs are as a community now, but it's not going to be the same forever, because our needs are not going to be the same forever. We are all learning all the time how best to be with ourselves and each other, and as we learn better, then we update the covenant periodically to reflect new levels of understanding. We may carry past iterations of our agreements with each other with a great deal of fondness, but we must never become so attached to the words of our covenant that we forget to covenant in spirit. The love of our past ways of being together must become the fertile soil in which we grow our new ways. I haven't been here very long, but I see a lot of depth in the present covenant here at First Parish. First of all, it's short and sweet. It gets right to the point, describing what is needed on the most basic level in our interactions together. It's actionable. It's not too laborious to digest. As Lindsay wisely reflected to us this morning, much of what's written is anchored in the simple idea of speaking the truth with love, or typing, singing, signing, or dancing the truth with love, depending on our method of communication. This covenant clearly demonstrates certain values: openness and honesty, kindness, respect, accountability, the balance between community and authority. In fact, there are quite a few parts of the covenant that suggest the value of a balance of dichotomies. I see an agreement that makes careful, intentional space for cultivating trust. When we can be in covenant with one another, using healthy boundaries to cultivate trust, it gives energy to other parts of our lives too. The roots of love, reassurance, responsibility, and aspiration that we grow here anchor us so we can share our best selves into all of our communities, venturing into every part of our lives with integrity. It enables us to take risks because we can return here and know we will be held in a mindful, reciprocal embrace by those who are bound to us in covenant. The truth is, what binds us together is exactly what gives us the freedom that we so cherish, to be who we are, to love who we love, to believe what we believe. As we grow as a community, let's continue to find our foundation in one another. Let's give our covenant the solemn power that it deserves and celebrate all that becomes possible when we anchor our lives in right relationship with each other. May it be so.
I invite you now to rise in body and or spirit as we sing our closing hymn, number 318, We Would Be One. We would be one as now we join in singing our hymn of love to pledge ourselves anew to that high cause of greater understanding of who we are and what in us is true. We would be one in living for each other to show to all a new community. We would be one in building for tomorrow than we have known today. We would be one in searching for that meaning which binds our hearts and points us on our way. With one we pledge ourselves to greater service. With love and justice, strive to make us free.
These benediction words come from the Reverend Dr. Cynthia Landrum. We leave this gathered community, but we don't leave our connection, our concerns, our care for each other. Our service to each other, to the world, and to our faith continues. Until we are together again, friends, be strong, be well, be true, be loving. Please be seated and remain seated while we appreciate our postlude.